morning sun shines on the gleaming hide of a muscular ranch horse. The aroma of bacon and coffee drifts from the wood cook stove at a cow camp. Silver spurs jingle as the men and women of the West get set for another day in the saddle. From the heart of Canada's finest ranching country, this is the Spirit of the West with rancher and horse trainer Hugh McLennan and his collection of music, poetry, and conversations with the folks who live and work with horses and cattle in the Spirit of the West.
Most of the good cowboys I know and I am privileged enough to ride with are really good at what they do. But you know what else they're really good at? Telling stories. And this week, one of the finest storytellers I know, who by the way is also an awesome roper, Dr. Michael Johnson, has a great story about one of the most legendary horsemen of our time.
And with that, Ray Hunt mounted Hondo, and in an eye blink, the man who could fix most any bronc was flying high in the sky. Hondo wasted no time in dumping Hunt right in the middle of the round pen.
And Baxter Black has been running his calculator this week.
315 chickens to equal one 1,100-pound steer.
How was the sale today, dear?
Good. I bought 315 chickens. They're in the back seat.
And some interesting numbers just in on cattle placements and prices. You'll hear it all on the Rangeland News.
There may not be as much incentive to be retaining heifers for herd expansion.
On the horse training file, this listener says they've tried everything and still can't get that horse to load in a trailer. Well, I think they're making some critical mistakes, and we'll talk about that on the horse training file. And we have another winner in the Cowboy Poetry Spotlight this week.
To ride in the mountains and feel the cool breeze, to sit in the saddle beneath the quaking asp trees.
And I think you'll really enjoy the classic Song of the West segment today, and we've got a great music lineup, starting out with Terry Brown.
He was born to ride the rough ones. He'll live and die a tough one, but there's a whole lot more to him than you can see. He's simply complicated, overly underrated. He's everything a cowboy should be. He grew up in Wyoming, left his family and his home, and he hit the road to make a better life. At times he gets so lonely, but the adrenaline and coffee keep him searching for another bronc to ride. From Houston out to Cheyenne, with no guarantee that he'll win, just another chance to feed the fire that's burning deep inside. He'll pay to ride the devil, win a buckle for his trouble, then go searching for another bronc to ride. He's one win short of Vegas, but he knows that he'll make it, 'cause he's vowed to let his heart lead him on to the money and the glory, and the chance to have his story written into a damn good cowboy song. From Houston out to Cheyenne, with no guarantee that he'll win, just another chance to feed the fire that's burning deep inside. He'll pay to ride the devil, win a buckle for his trouble, then go searching for another bronc to ride. He was born to ride the rough ones. He'll live and die a tough one, but there's a whole lot more to him than you can see. He's simply complicated, overly underrated. He's everything a cowboy should be. He's everything a cowboy should be.
And now, let's hear from the master storyteller himself, Dr. Michael Johnson.
Recently, a young woman wrote me a letter about her horse. His name is Super. Callie had been an accomplished horsewoman since she was young. She roped and ran barrels on her trusted companion, Happy. Happy was her horse for years. Because of Happy's ability and willingness, Callie experienced a great deal of success. Because of that success with Happy, she said, I couldn't help but conclude I was quite the little horseman. Then Super came into her life. Super was a chestnut sorrel with a blazed face and movie star good looks. And Callie said, I could see us cashing checks before I ever bought Super. Super could run, a critical requirement for a barrel horse. But Super didn't enjoy running to barrels. As a matter of fact, he refused. No matter how much Callie worked, Super was impossible. Others told her, make him mind, or use a stronger bit, or the least helpful advice of all. Maybe he doesn't want to be a barrel horse. But Callie couldn't let him go. She desperately wanted to save Super, so Callie sought a master. Callie was trying to answer the same question that has whispered to me all my life. How is it that we help? Callie found an answer.
Now, this is about to get really interesting because the master Callie sought out is someone many of you will recognize. And that's next when the Spirit of the West continues right after this. Welcome back to the Spirit of the West. Big news in our music world. Tom Cole has released his latest album called Chronicles. Boy, there's some terrific stuff on it. And you'll hear one of them after we get back to Dr. Michael Johnson. Now, Callie had sought out a master to help her with her horse. And Michael picks up the story right here.
Professional rodeo cowboy and steer wrestler Lee Graves purchased a horse a few years back. Several of his friends counseled against such a move, telling Lee, that horse just doesn't have it. Lee thought differently. Lee's horse would later win Steer Wrestling Horse of the Year. Lee Graves found an answer. Our Australian shepherd, Rowdy, had potential as a herding dog. But Rowdy was aggressive and tough-minded. And trust me when I say that my wife and I lacked control over Rowdy. But because I believed in him so much, Rowdy and I drove 500 miles to work with a master. Two masters, two men, one named Orrin Barnes and the other named Bob Hooker. Even though Barnes and Hooker live several hundred miles apart, they've been close friends for many years. Both are accomplished horsemen, and both are considered masters with herding dogs. Perhaps more than any of my other professors, Barnes and Hooker were my best teachers. They helped me find the answer I had searched for so long. Those two individuals knew the secret. So what's all this about helping horses and dogs? What does that have to do with helping people? During a clinic at Amarillo, Texas, conducted by Mr. Barnes and Mr. Hooker, Rowdy and I and all the participants experienced the joy of learning. When you're learning about something you love with someone you love, work is more fun than fun. We spent an intense day with both instructors pushing us and our dogs, and as the session came to a close, Orrin Barnes turned and addressed the crowd. The true teacher, he said, is always doing the same thing. Whether he or she is working with humans, horses, or dogs, the true teacher is always instilling confidence in the student. The true teacher is always convincing us that we can.
Okay, and more from Michael Johnson very shortly here, but first, here's another track from Tom Cole's terrific new CD. What a song this is, and you gotta love this sweet steel guitar from Bo Hughes making it sound so country.
Faded jeans and high heels, hay bales in the back. She climbs into that pickup truck, then heads out past the tracks. Another day, another buck. She does it just because she's trying hard to help her man, just like her mama does. She'll change her clothes, help with the chores, then put some supper on. She'll dance around the table, then get the dishes done. And being bored is something she's only heard about. She says her prayers, then goes to bed just as her day runs out. Farmer's daughter, a diamond in the rough. Farmer's daughter, she's tender and she's tough. Soft and sweet she comes complete with a love for countryside. She's stronger than most any man, better keep her on your side. Farmer's daughter. Good at keeping secrets, she can tell what's wrong or right. She has a way of knowing when to run or fight. She's got a tattoo of a kitten, not just anybody sees. There's a whole side of this farm girl that she saves just for me. Farmer's daughter, a diamond in the rough. Farmer's daughter, she's gentle and she's gruff. Soft and sweet she comes complete with a warm and tender smile. She's more fun than anyone for at least a country mile. Farmer's daughter, farmer's daughter, farmer's daughter.
Tom Cole, and just a couple of weeks ago at the North Peace Cultural Center in Fort St. John, Tom and friends did a live show called Live from the Living Room, and oh man, the show was sold out. Just heard it was fantastic, and they raised a huge whack of money for some deserving charities. And my guitar-picking brother Jim was a part of that. Bunch of great photos and some videos of that show on Tom's Facebook page too. Now let's get back to Dr. Michael Johnson.
Callie is working on helping Super find his confidence. Lee Graves said, "I knew all I had to do with this dogging horse was to build his confidence." Mr. Barnes and Mr. Hooker helped Rowdy believe in himself, and they did precisely the same thing for me. Every true teacher I ever had in my life has done exactly the same thing. They helped me believe that I could. When Orrin Barnes said that statement that day in the Coliseum, I smiled. As the power of his words sank deeper into me, I wanted to fall on my knees and weep with joy, but I just smiled. Finally, after all those years, I found the answer to my quest. The way we help others, all living creatures, is to help them believe in themselves, to help them believe that they can. Ain't it a shame that my graduate professors didn't mention that?
Well, that fascinating story about Ray Hunt and Tom Dorrance is still coming up. And next, Baxter Black makes a fascinating comparison to the amount of water and feed it takes to raise chickens and compares it to beef. And we have a neat new song that's kind of a collaboration between Mel Brown and Alan Christie. And then it's the Rangeland News, when the Spirit of the West continues right after this.
Howdy, friends. This is Baxter Black on Spirit of the West with Hugh McLennan with a little peek at hedging pullets. What holds the loaded 30,000-pound trailer to the heavy-duty truck? What holds the 38-foot RV trailer to the dually? What holds the 2-horse trailer with your daughter's favorite pony to the half-ton pickup? Well, the odds are it's a B&W trailer hitch, probably a turnover bowl, American-made, employee-owned, customer-tuned, and proud of their part in America's greatness. B&W, holding things together down the road. I've been trying to explain to myself how the efficiency of pork and poultry production compares to beef production. It's like trying to explain the futures market to a group of Bantu tribesmen. 3 times my pencil ran amok, and twice the calculator burst into flames. It struck me that if producing beef is as inefficient as we're told, then no one could afford to be in the beef business. No comments, please. So there must be some compensating factors. Comparing pork, poultry, and beef is as difficult as comparing apples, oranges, and enchiladas. Now you need to find some common ground. Both the other species convert grain to meat better than beef. According to my calculations, it takes 1,775 pounds of high-energy feed to produce 700 pounds of chicken, 3,132 pounds of feed to produce 700 pounds of pork, and 5,200 pounds of feed to produce 700 pounds of beef, which means it also takes 5 hogs or 315 chickens to equal one 1,100-pound steer.
How was the sale today, dear?
Good. I bought 315 chickens. They're in the back seat. Well, inventory turnover, important to any business cash flow, is better with poultry, 8 weeks, pork 170 days, beef 470 days, but then again, what's time to a cow? Does beef have any comparable advantages? Well, yes. Over the years, the sale price of live cattle is usually higher per pound than pork or chicken. More than 90% of the pounds put on pigs or broilers is put on with high-energy feed, and about 60% of the 1,100-pound steer is put on with finished feed, so obviously cattle are making better use of the roughage than the other animals. So from birth to Iowa beef, it takes a steer 470 days to produce 700 pounds of meat. It takes 779 hog animal days to produce the same 700 pounds of meat, and 52,148 chicken animal days, which just means if you could feed a chicken to 1,100 pounds, you could hedge him on the commodities board in April 2129 AD. So in conclusion, each species has its own advantages, and each is accompanied by their own particular drawbacks. For instance, cattle require more space and heavier handling equipment. Hogs, of course, have a peculiar odor, and it's hard to run a set of chickens on alfalfa stubble with hot wire. This is Baxter Black on Spirit of the West with Hugh McLennan, brought to you by B&W Turnover Bowl.
Ranchers, farmers, and producers from around the world come to Farm Fair International to meet, do business, and drive innovation. It's where the top show stock competes, the best deals are made, the sales are supreme, and the future of agriculture all comes together. Join us at the Edmonton Expo Center this November 9th to 13th. Learn about all the show and sales programs and get your tickets at farmfairinternational.com. When we were out to the 40th annual Ivan Daines Country Music Picnic back in August, Mel Brown came up and stuck a CD in my hand. It's his latest project, produced by Alan Christie, and it's called Cookin' for One, Drinkin' for Two. And I think a lot of the Spirit of the West audience can appreciate this one. It's called Get a Little Ian.
Give me this, get me that, get it fast, it's a matter of fact. Get it right, not in between, get me running like some damn machine. What it's all worth and what it's all for, a lot of things I don't get anymore. But I get a little in and I get a little corb and I get a little bit of like it was before. Sing a little bit about the cowboy ways, and I feel a little better about the hell I raised. I don't get new country music anymore, but I get a little in and I get a little cold. Get my dinner from a fishing line, what I grow out back at that house of mine. Mom and Dad raised us on a quarter of land, that kind of living I understand. Like my friends, like to sing a song, don't like to fight, I like to get along. And I get a little in and I get a little corb and I get a little bit of like it was before. Sing a little bit about the cowboy ways, and I feel a little better about the hell I raised. I don't get new country music anymore, but I get a little in and I get a little cold. South, we sing it like this.
Get a little Gurf and I get a little Sam and I get a little bit of I don't give a damn. Or sing a little bit about old Blaze and I feel a little better about the hell I raised. Don't get much about modern man, but I get a little Gurf and I get a little Sam. And I don't get new country music anymore, but I get a little in and I get a little chord.
News of the Rangeland, a roundup of news and coming events from around the West.
Top of page 1 for the Rangeland News. New numbers just in, and they reflect the number of cattle that went into feedlots last month and how that might affect the number of heifers being kept back. And with more, here's Gary Crawford.
USDA report on cattle feedlot activity says placements into feedlots during August were just under 1.9 million head, 15% higher than August a year ago, but August of 2015 did set a record low for placements. Still, a good number of cattle going into feedlots. USDA livestock analyst Shay O'Shagam says, yes, feedlots were still losing money.
But we did see feeder steer prices in Oklahoma during August averaging about $145 a hundredweight, as opposed to about $212 in August of 2015. So the fact that we had those prices come down probably made some of the cattle feeders much more willing to buy cattle for placement.
Of course, with cow-calf operators having to sell feeders for less,
there may not be as much incentive to be retaining heifers for herd expansion.
So again, feedlots placing just under 1.9 million head in August, marketing about the same number, leaving feedlot inventories at 10 million head, 1% more than a year ago. Gary Crawford for the U.S. Department of Agriculture, Washington.
Canadian diplomats are fanning out across the United States to talk up the benefits of trade with state and local leaders and counter what senior officials see as a worrying mood of protectionism that seems to be swirling through the U.S. election campaign. Both Republican presidential nominee Donald Trump and Democratic rival Hillary Clinton have talked about altering the three-nation North American Free Trade Agreement, and that could have a calamitous effect for Canada, which sends 75% of all its exports to the U.S. The diplomatic offensive comes amid concerns in Ottawa about both candidates, whose opinions show are in a tight race ahead of the November 8th election. And Trump has talked about renegotiating the NAFTA treaty with Canada and Mexico to secure more favorable terms for the U.S., but he has also said he would revive TransCanada Corp's cross-border Keystone XL pipeline project, which Democratic President Barack Obama's administration blocked over environmental concerns, and Clinton says she opposes Keystone XL. And still with international trade, China and Canada have signed a protocol to expand market access for Canadian frozen bone-in beef, and have also advanced several key initiatives to support trade in Canadian pork, bovine genetics, and some processed foods. As Canada's second largest trading partner, the experts tell us China offers significant opportunities for exports. In 2015, Canadian agricultural exports to China were valued at $5.6 billion. And the Canadian cattle industry estimates that new access for bone-in beef will generate an increase in Canadian beef exports of approximately $10 million annually. Not only is China already the world's largest consumer of meat products, demand for beef is projected to maintain an upward trend as Chinese consumers increase the presence of high-quality beef in their diets. Canadian beef processors, of course, lost access to the Chinese market in 2003, and you all know that story. Some interesting information here from Alberta's cattle country. Adequate moisture conditions in most of the province have resulted in larger than normal yields, resulting in bigger stacks and rows of hay bales. Now, if the winter is normal and cow numbers remain static, there could be a large surplus of hay carried over into the summer of 2017 and fed in the winter of 2017-18. Now, the problem is protecting that precious stuff from the weather damage. And according to Barry Yermisio of Alberta Agriculture, when hay is carried over the course of a winter, bales weather and lose both weight and quality. And research on overwinter outdoor bale storage done in the Westlock area found a 5.7% reduction in bale weight over the first winter. A 1,400-pound bale in July would weigh 1,320 pounds the following spring. The bales were stored in an area that was higher in elevation compared to the surrounding area, and the grass was mowed prior to bringing in the bales onto the site. Other research reports indicated that weight loss can be as high as 15%. That's 210 pounds for a 1,400-pound bale. Increased losses are expected if snow is trapped between the bales and during the spring melt if the water doesn't run off, resulting, of course, in water damage. And according to Barry, cows will reject up to or waste up to 8% more feed from bales stored unprotected outdoors as compared to bales stored under a tarp or under a shed. Now, if you're thinking of heading to the Canadian Finals Rodeo and Farm Fair, here's a few facts that might interest you. Since 2005, the ranch horse sale at Farm Fair International has been among the highest averaging horse sale in Western Canada, sale prices reaching as high as $20,000. And Farm Fair International is home to two of the highest paying futurities for team roping and barrel racing horses in Western Canada, and the Canadian National Team Roping Futurity, as well as the Northlands Barrel Racing Futurity. All kinds of horse stuff going on, along with, of course, the Heritage Ranch Rodeo. And that's at 1:30 p.m. daily from November 9th to 11th. And there will be 16 working ranches from across Western Canada competing in the 12th annual Heritage Ranch Rodeo. And then, of course, it's the big Ranch Horse Sale, November the 11th. The preview at 10 a.m. and the sale is at 5 p.m. Well, it's pre-sort sale time at the Innisfail Auction Market. Regular pre-sort sales now underway, and they also, of course, sell calves and yearlings at the regular Wednesday sales. Give them a call if you'd like to discuss your options. 403-227-3166 and see InnisfailAuctionMarket.com. And that takes us down to the final item. And you know, it's been said that the reason men can't do laundry is because the washer and dryer don't have a rabbit and turtle on them. But this guy figured he'd try, so he was loading up one of his favorite garments to wash it. And he hollers upstairs to his wife, "Honey, what setting do I put the washer on to wash my t-shirt?" And she says, "Well, just have a look. What does it say on the shirt?" And he says, "Spirit of the West Cruise 2008. And that's the Rangeland News. Coming up on the horse training file, a horse the owner says they've tried everything with and still can't get him to load in a trailer. And from what they told me, I think they've made the situation worse. That's coming up along with Dr. Michael Johnson's story about Ray Hunt and Tom Dorrance, when the Spirit of the West continues right after this. Welcome back to the Spirit of the West. You know, trailer loading is something that most so-called broke horses need to be able to do, and in most cases, if it's taught properly, they load willingly and they actually like going into the trailer. But a listener says he can't get his horse to load no matter what. So that's what we're looking at on this week's Horse Training File. And that's coming up right away. I was just thinking about that song from Mel Brown's new CD that we just played, and I guess after that, we better bring in a little Ian. This is from Ian's latest CD, released last summer. The song is Cottonwood Canyon.
Tonight, I hear the call of Cottonwood Canyon. Listen, you can hear it on the wind. Red-tail hawk making circles high above the canyon walls, where I slept in the sand far below. Down where the clear waters flow, drillers come. Have I waited too long? The cottonwood tree, she cries to me, beg I'm leave it in the ground. And we'll sleep in the sand far below.
Now, the horse training file. I have a gelding and we're having trouble loading him in a trailer. We tried everything. Treats, other horses loading first, butt ropes, chains over his nose and under his chin. Nothing works. He just keeps fighting. Any suggestions would be greatly appreciated. Well, I have to tell you right off the bat that a lot of the things you've tried, and I suspect with more pressure than necessary, are making the problem worse. They're creating more resistance and making the horse feel that the trailer is a very scary place that his survival instincts tell him never to go into. Now, just about any horse can learn to like the trailer once they see it as a place of comfort where nothing bad happens. And I also suspect that you have more than just a loading problem, you probably have a leading problem too. Years ago, I got a call from some folks who were going to bring a 2-year-old filly up to our place for me to start. They said they tried everything, even hooking onto the halter shank with the tractor and trying to pull her in, but she would not load. Well, when I got to their place, the filly was pretty stressed, and I did a little groundwork, and I found out that I couldn't even lead her between 2 trees that were about 4 feet apart. So I knew that if I couldn't do that, I sure as heck couldn't load her. It took me about 20 minutes, and then she'd lead, or I could send her between the trees easily. And in another 10 minutes, I was able to load her and unload her in the trailer and out of the trailer as often as I wanted. And just the other day, we observed something that illustrates how this can work. But it wasn't with horses, it was with calves. We'd sorted a half a dozen calves from the cows and loaded the calves into our stock trailer. Now, one of these calves needed an ear tag and a brand, so we hauled him over to our neighbors to use their chute. We had to unload all 6 calves at his place, so I backed up to the gate, opened the trailer sliding door, and the calves filed out. And then they saw my neighbor on foot, and guess what they did? They all ran back into the trailer, because they knew there was no pressure on them as long as they were in there. And if you think about that principle, no pressure, the trailer's a safe place, a sweet spot, and apply it to your horses, it'll help a lot. And that's the horse training file. Something else that helps a lot is that daily feeding of Hoffman's horse ration. My good old mare Lucky put in another half a day's work or so the other day. Billy was riding her, and it's amazing. She's almost 30 years old, but she does get that daily feeding of Hoffman's horse ration. Find out more at hoffmanshorseration.com. One of the finest equine establishments in Western Canada is now for sale. Horse in Hand Ranch has hosted world-class events and world-class clinicians like George Morris, Jonathan Field, and many more. The main barn has a state-of-the-art 230 by 90-foot indoor arena, attached 60-foot indoor round pen, 21 custom stalls with feed bins, rubber mats, and automatic waterers, 2 beautifully groomed outdoor arenas, and over 100 acres of country riding trails. Beautiful 5-bedroom, 5-bathroom home with 5,000 square feet of living space. A shop any horseman would love to have. Many quality outbuildings, turnout pens, and pasture. This facility has more wonderful features than we have time to mention, but you can find out more at klrtcommercial.com/horse-in-hand or call 403-887-1237. Well, I had a great day last week gathering in the last of the cattle that we've been looking after all summer. And the great crew from headquarters came up with their good horses and good dogs and the big triaxle liner. And it was one of those beautiful, crisp fall days, and we all fanned out across the range. And after a few hours, we had pretty well all the cows, calves, and bulls accounted for and in the corral. And as the last one clambered up the ramp into the liner, it was kind of sad to see this day's work finished and to know that there might only be 1 or 2 more rides with this great cowboy crew until next spring. And as the liner pulled away from the chute, I headed Cody back down the trail to home, and as I was riding towards home, this song from Duke Davis just kept running through my mind.
The sun's waking up in the cow herd, the coffee's beginning to pour. The wrangler has jingled the horses, and old Coosie's been up since 4. It's bacon and beans and biscuits, then call out your mount to the boss. It's time for one last big circle on the back of a stout-legged horse. The fall work soon will be over as we gather the last of the herd. The dust devils dance across the prairie, and nobody is saying a word. The far sound of low-balling cattle makes me tired of being alone, and I feel the first taste of the winter as it chills my soul to the bone. Move along slow to home, boys. Move along slowly for me. Move along, the fall work is over. I'll see you next year in the spring. I'll see you next year in the spring. The cattle, they all move so slowly, fat and lazy this time of year. And we prowl the La Jolla pasture till we've rounded up every last steer. We pin and ride back to the wagon. The shipping's all done for the fall, but the blues seem to be all around us, and nobody's riding too tall. Old Page, now he's fussing with Lolly, but Lolly ain't saying too much. And Lynn, well, he's dreaming of Barbara, and her cheek he's longing to touch. And Jerry, well, he's thinking of his new saddle that he'll pick up when we get to town, while Sam is riding behind us, just dragging and wearing a frown. Move along slow to home, boys. Move along slowly for me. Move along, the fall work is over. I'll see you next year in the spring. I'll see you next year in the spring. Move along slow to home, boys. Move along slowly for me. Move along, the fall work is over. I'll see you next year in the spring. I'll see you next year in the spring. I'll see you next year in the spring.
Okay, now here's another great story from Dr. Michael Johnson, and this is the one we've been waiting for about the last 40 minutes or so.
In 2004, Ray Hunt was named Horseman of the Century. Wonderful honor. But like all of us, Ray had some times in his past that were not so easy. One always comes to mind. In 1960, Ray was low on money and low on hope. He was down to his last horse, and unfortunately simply could not tame the horse called Hondo. Regardless of his every effort, Hondo insisted on refusing to cooperate. In frustration, Ray called on Tom Dorrance for help. Immediately after Tom arrived, the two men and one horse headed to the round pen. "What's he doing?" asked Dorrance. "I'll show you," said Hunt. And with that, Ray Hunt mounted Hondo, and in an eye blink, the man who could fix most any bronc was flying high in the sky. Hondo wasted no time in dumping Hunt right in the middle of the round pen. Lying on his back, Hunt looked up at Tom Dorrance sitting on the fence and said, "See, that's what he does, and it ain't the first time, not by a long shot." And Tom Dorrance said the strangest thing. When Hunt said, "See, that's what he does, he bucks me off over and over," Dorrance said, "That's the last thing in the world that horse wants to do. He doesn't want to be that way." And then Dorrance added, "We'll work with him, and one day your children will ride him." And that's what happened. And Tom Dorrance put Hondo back on the list of life. A short time later, Hunt would win the San Francisco Futurity on Hondo, and later say, "He became one of the finest horses I ever rode." When I was 17 years old, a woman said something particularly cruel to me. She owned a dress shop in my hometown. And one day after my father died, I happened to walk past her door. She stepped out of that shop and said, "I heard you were going to college." I answered that I was. "What a shame and a waste," she said. "You of all people should not be allowed in college. Considering your academic record, it's obvious you don't belong there." Unfortunately, I conformed only too well to her expectations for some time. Most of us have had a similar experience. I know about that horse called Hondo. I am Hondo. Most of us are. Thank God for people like Tom Dorrance.
Dr. Michael Johnson, degree in industrial psychology, and one of the best ropers you'll ever find. And we'll have more from Michael Johnson in the coming months. Next, we have a classic Song of the West and the story behind the song, and then a good piece of cowboy poetry when the Spirit of the West continues right after this. Welcome back to the Spirit of the West. This is our classic Song of the West segment, and by the way, we're still looking for a sponsor for this part of the show. Boy, what a deal we can give you. Anyway, you might remember a black and white TV series that ran from 1955 to 1959, every Tuesday at 7:30. That was a pretty good time. And I think it was finally replaced by Jeopardy on ABC. Anyway, it starred Clint Walker as a cowboy who wandered the West trying to avoid trouble but with little success. Although it's hard to understand who would mess with the 6'6" Clint Walker, the producers quickly realized that his value with his shirt off was pretty good, and it came off in an astonishing number of episodes. His horse, by the way, was named Brandy, and a lot of young female fans gave that name to their horses. The theme song from the series was an accurate picture of what the show was about. And here to sing the theme from Cheyenne is Les Gillen.
Cheyenne, Cheyenne, where will you be camping tonight? Lonely man, Cheyenne, will your heart stay free and light? Dream, Cheyenne, of a girl you may never love. Move along, Cheyenne, like the restless clouds up above. The wind that blows, that comes and goes, has been your only home. But will the wild wind one day cease and you no longer roam? Move along, Cheyenne, next pasture is always so green. Drifting on, Cheyenne, don't forget the things you have seen, And when you settle down, where will it be, Cheyenne? The wind that blows, that comes and goes, has been your only home. But will the wild wind one day cease, and you no longer roam? Move along, Cheyenne. Next pasture is always so green. Drifting on, Cheyenne. Don't forget the things you have seen. And when you settle down, where will it be, Cheyenne? Cheyenne.
Floyd Beard is a lifetime cowboy and a fifth-generation rancher and an award-winning cowboy poet from southeastern Colorado. And he's in the Cowboy Poetry Spotlight today with this good one.
I'm a cowboy. It's a life that I love, with cattle and horses and the blue sky above. To ride in the mountains and feel the cool breeze, to sit in the saddle 'neath the quaking asp trees. Have you ever seen the sunrise from atop a good horse as you sit by a stream up near its own source, or seen the sun chase the mist from the meadow each morn? Have you witnessed the innocence of a fawn that's newborn? Well, the money's not much and the hours are long and the days are too many when everything goes wrong. My truck needs more care, my hat's out of style, but that wobbly-legged calf sure makes it worthwhile. You know, I reckon there are some jobs with more money and less strife, but this ain't just my job, it's my way of life.
Well, thank you so much for making the ride this week, and I sure hope you can join us right here next week at the same time. And thanks again to our great support crew, Mark and Kathy McMillan. Find out all about them at meadowsprings.com. And if you're looking for tractor parts, Mark can help you there too. And if you're still interested in joining us on our next Spirit of the West cruise to Alaska next June, just give Jim and Karen a call at 1-800-530-0131. I was just thumbing through the latest issue of Alberta Beef Magazine, and boy, there's some great articles there from Sherry, Will, Lee, Bonnie, and several others. You can subscribe at albertabeef.ca or call 403-250-1090. And be sure to check the latest issue of Canadian Cowboy Country Magazine at your favorite newsstand or call 1-800-943-7336 to subscribe. Till next week, I'm Hugh McLennan. Hope to see you down the trail somewhere real soon.